to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda, we have our high school student rep. New student rep.
Hi, I'm Savannah. Gilliland High School is off to a great start. The Source of Strength training was on the 12th, and 200 students participated in all grades. The annual Powder Puff is October 3rd, and then the homecoming game is October 4th, and the dance is October 5th. One thing that I would really like to point out is that Gilliland's doing this year that's brand new is the Global Impact Challenge. The Global Impact Challenge is a program for middle school and high school students and educators that challenges diverse teams of students to creatively address global issues at the local level. And over 20 schools throughout the United States are competing, and then in February they'll tell who wins, and then the winners will go to California, and I think that's really cool.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have public comment number 1. I think we have 3 people signed up. And ask everybody who signs up if you speak for 3 to 5 minutes at the max. That way we can get everybody in and move on with the agenda. First is Darren Anderson.
Board members, thank you for hearing our plea today to create a bus stop for my daughter Megan and our neighbors' children, Kate and Luke Kennedy, whose father is here today, will also speak. I'm also speaking on behalf of parents from the Guilderland School District who might wish to advocate for their children but feel perhaps it's pointless. I don't think that's the case. Or they might feel unnecessarily that there will be reprisal against their children if they speak out, which I don't think is the case. And for those who may not be able to make the school board meeting because our busy and chaotic modern life. Furthermore, I would like to thank President Rivera and Vice President Haran and Member Goes for actually contacting me back. I know that I emailed each of the board members and forwarded you our letters that we sent to Dr. Wiles. You've all seen the letters I sent describing our situation. I just want to briefly summarize. So my child Megan, who's a kindergartner, along with the Kennedys' kindergartner Kate and their second grader Luke, all live on Angelina Terrace. I live on 1632 Angelina Terrace, a home that my wife Meredith and I, along with my child Megan, who are in the back, we purchased this home to come to a good school district like Guilderland, and we're very excited that she's joining this year. We were disappointed, however, upon learning that the assignment of our bus stop actually is at 1608 Angelina Terrace, which is out of sight from our house and also out of sight from the Kennedy's house. It's around a treacherous corner that we have no sidewalk, and that is extremely dangerous to walk on, especially in the winter conditions when there is an icy conditions. Cars have been known to slide off the street actually, and actually Mark Coletti is actually here and going to talk about who lives on that corner to explain the dangers of that corner and why he also thinks that it's not appropriate for us to have to travel to this bus stop. Vice President Haran also walked down with me as well and experienced what our children have to walk to. And I'm going to explain this, but let me just say up front, we're proposing a compromise to place a bus stop near our homes so they don't have to walk down this route. Perhaps between them, I also sent a picture of there's a children at play sign that's between both of our houses that would seem to be an ideal spot. Last year and this year again, the Kennedys, and along with myself this year, were told by Superintendent for Business, Neil Sanders, that according to state law, the bus stop is within 0.2 of a mile from our homes, and that parents bear the responsibility to get their children to the bus stop safely. After writing to Superintendent Dr. Wiles, she referred our case to Mr. Sanders, and he made that determination again. We're seeking to have a different compromise. I work for New York State. I am a state worker. I understand policy and procedures and practice. However, the best policies I've always found are guidelines and not absolutes, because there are situations that warrant further consideration. Also, state laws and regulations are purposely more global than local school district policies, leaving room for school districts to create policies within those laws and make case-by-case decisions that best suit their constituents as administrators and board members more readily understand the needs of those that live in their district. It is not in conflict with state law for a school district to create an additional bus stop. It is within the district's privy, we believe, to make such a compromise. As for the policy or practice of the Transportation Department, I don't see a valid reason why a compromise couldn't be made. For example, the school bus, Bus 22, is the bus that our children ride, actually drives by our homes every day, directly right by them, on their way to this bus stop at 1608 Angelina Terrace. It then stops about 3 or 4 houses down from that stop at 1602 Angelina Terrace and picks up a few more children there in direct eyesight and just a few houses down. Why that stop exists while we live significantly farther out of sight from 1608 seems strange, but we don't know why. Just pointing this out as a fact. The Kennedys can speak further on bus route 22, as their older child, Luke, has ridden on it since last year. But it does seem that, and appear to be, that our kindergartners, and perhaps the only, and we might be the only parents on the route, who have our children picked up out of sight of their own house, if not near their house. Looking at the data given to me by the Kennedys, actually called the Transportation Department about the bus route 22. 42 students ride the morning bus with a total of 17 stops. That is on average about 2.5 kids per bus stop. So if a new stop at 1628 Angelina Terrace was added, that would actually be 3 kids getting on the bus over the average set by the precedent by the Transportation Department or our bus route. Additionally, if we're looking at just the numbers, stops at 1602 and 1608 are within line of sight and near each other, and if those 2 stops were combined, at a new stop at 1628, there would be a net 0 additional bus stops. Some have suggested, well, why don't you drive your kids to Linwood? Well, I had to ask them how it would make sense to choose not to use public transportation. If all the parents drove their children to school, we would be creating chaos at the school during the morning and afternoons, increasing our carbon footprint, and actually going against many initiatives Governor Cuomo has been advocating over the past few years.
Mr. Anderson, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's been 5 minutes, so can you wrap up?
I was just going to say, I hope I wasn't going on too long. We look forward to hearing, we're open to talking if you want to suspend the rules more about this. We're open to talk about that, I am at least. And I just want to say I'm advocating for my child here. I think this is important for her safety, and I think we do have a compromise that we propose to put a bus stop near our homes at 1628. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak before you today.
Thank you. Next, we have Joseph Kennedy.
Good evening, Dr. Wiles, members of the board. My dad always told me brevity is the soul of wit, so I will try to keep this short and sweet. My purpose in appearing tonight is to introduce some awareness to the board of the risks parents like myself and the Andersons are raising that we feel are being dismissed by leaders in the district. And the purpose of bringing it before the board is to, as our advocates in the community, to interact with the members of the administration, make sure that our voice is heard, and the situations that we're assessing in our risk assessment tells us our children are at risk. Our children are the only children, as Darren mentioned, who have to walk around a blind turn, a dangerous turn, on the entirety of Route 22, which I have followed the bus to school with my wife on other occasions, our children at this stop are the only ones who cannot see their home from the bus stop. The bus passes 16 houses between the stop at 1653 and 1608. Then it passes 2 houses in between the next 2 stops. There's another spot where it makes 5 stops within 500 or 600 yards on a straight stretch of road. So this just, from the ground level, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem fair. It's not about fair because it is compliant within the state regs. I understand that. That's why I'm here before you, members of the board, ask you to hear our case and help us put this proposal in place to either combine some stops, to put a stop in the middle at 1628, or maybe just add a stop so my children can get on the bus without walking on the sheet of ice in the middle of January and February. My father-in-law was walking the kids to the bus stop. He fell on his way to the bus stop in the middle of February. On his way back to the house, he fell again. It's a real problem. I think it's worth talking about, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Mark Colati.
Good evening. Thank you. Appreciate your time. I live on the corner that's in question here. I've been there 31 years now, and it is a problem. I'm just going to let you know that each year we have tire tracks on the front lawn. We have to repair something. We've taken out a tree, a major tree in the middle of the yard, because my wife was afraid that somebody was going to lose it and crash into that tree. So I've seen cars lose control. Being there for the time that we have been there, I can tell you that the speed limit is not always adhered to. It is somewhat blind when you're coming around from either direction. And I just want to corroborate what my neighbors are saying. It is, there's a valid concern here. And I'd really appreciate that you look at it again. You can't really get an appreciation for being there a day or two and just watching the local traffic for that period of time. I've lived it, and I'll tell you honestly, there are days when I wanted to take a lacrosse ball and launch it into a side of a car that was going too fast. So it's a real issue, and again, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody wants to suspend the rules to discuss, but if you do, I think we should maybe do it after the program report, because we have a lot of people here for that, and I think students also are here for the program report. Any objections?
No
All right.
students are here for that, though.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
We have other visitors, though, clearly.
Other visitors, sorry. All right, so next we have our program report for literacy coaching, and I'll turn it over to Damien.
All right, good evening, everyone. We weren't expecting a troop of Cub Scouts, I'm assuming, with us today. I know several of you, so we're glad to have you here. It's good to see you. So thank you again for giving us some time. Oh, Boy Scouts, sorry, my fault. Thank you for giving us some time to provide an update on some very exciting work that we have been doing in the district with literacy coaching at our elementary schools. I'm happy to kick off this presentation this evening, but I assure you I am not the star of this show. The people standing to my right and several sitting in the audience here are really the ones that I want to highlight and introduce to you tonight. Gilda, from my position, I can emphatically share with you that the excitement and the optimism and the impact that this work has had on the Guilderland community and our youngest learners, most importantly, has been extremely exciting. And helping to facilitate and support this work has indeed been one of the most rewarding endeavors of my professional career here in Guilderland, so I'm very excited about it. I do want to, however, step back a little bit and recap some prior presentations that were shared with the Board of Education previously. And you might recall that back in 2017, a presentation was given by Alicia Rizzo, the principal of Linwood Elementary School, and her team of fantastic teachers at Linwood who really, I think, kicked off this fine work. So recall that a number of years ago, one of our elementary schools, being Linwood, of course, was identified by the State Education Department as a school in need of improvement. And this designation is based on New York State test results, and it required the staff to engage in a pretty exhaustive performance review as well as an improvement planning exercise. With the guidance and the leadership of Alicia Rizzo, the principal at Linwood, the school community developed and pursued a comprehensive and research-based plan for improvement, which focused on several key components. Those key components were: we wanted to establish a school-university partnership. We wanted to be informed by the work of higher education and research. We wanted to establish a framework for teaching literacy that emphasized oral language, reading, and writing, and that was called Literacy Collaborative. We wanted to establish highly trained literacy coaches, and again, this is where the work began, who provided ongoing professional development and classroom coaching to other staff. And we wanted to have a leadership team in place that guided the implementation of this work. And that was a leadership team that included many stakeholders, but most importantly, the teachers at Linwood. So in 2017, the board heard from Principal Rizzo and her team and some parents about the positive impact that we were observing there. So there were several key observations that we made. One being that literacy teaching vastly improved and has had a positive effect on student learning. Secondly was that student learning and achievement. We observed quite rapidly that there was a close in the gap that was observed that led to the designation as a school in need of improvement. And thirdly, the professional learning community that had emerged and developed over time. And I give a great amount of credit to Nell Ball and Katie Barker, who you will meet in just a moment, who served as the literacy coaches at Linwood. So the collective impact was a removal of Linwood from SINI status, or School in Need of Improvement status, as well as an opportunity for all of our elementary schools and the district to learn and observe about these collective and shared efforts at Linwood. And if you wish, you can access the Altamont Enterprise. The link is here on the slide, their article, which captured well the work and the success realized for Linwood. So our local observations and the evaluation of this work closely reflected some of the conclusions made by research studies, educational research studies, where similar efforts had been initiated. So I share with you an example from a 4-year longitudinal study that found, first, that students' average rates of learning increased by 16% in the first implementation year of coaching, 28% in the second year of implementation of coaching, and 32% in the third year of implementation of coaching. Teacher expertise increased substantially, and the rate of improvement was predicted by the amount of coaching the teacher received. And then thirdly, the professional communication among teachers in these schools increased over 3 years of implementation, and the literacy coach became a more central role in the school's communication networks. So to bring you up to speed on where we've been and where we are at this time, you'll see that this is not a quick fix. There was no expedited path to this point in time. There were a number of steps or phases of implementation that we followed for this work, and those who study change theory and education will tell you that it takes at least 3 to 5 years to realize the impact of any significant change effort. I want to point out, however, that prior to the work at Linwood regarding coaching, we had already entered into a journey that took us really into this realm of collaborative and shared professional growth. And that was in our work with Reading Recovery, which is a pretty intensive intervention program that we reported to the board back in, 2011 maybe, when we were kicking that off. We recognized from that work that our efforts and the programs could improve even further with a renewed focus on early intervention for our struggling readers at grade 1. And it was then that when we introduced Reading Recovery, which served not only as an intervention model, but is deeply rooted in collaborative learning through observation, feedback, and reflection. And some who have been on the board for quite a while may recall that program report years ago when a team of teachers, parents shared their experiences with Reading Recovery. So our foray into literacy coaching was a logical extension of the heavily researched intervention model that we established in Guilderland. So the extension began with the first phase, which was focused on engaging all of the schools in the community with building and committing to the vision of the process. This may well have been the most critical step in phase 1, as it achieved broad and shared ownership and paved the way toward a community of learners with shared goals and commitments. The second phase established the critical university partnership and began the training process for the selected intermediate and primary coaches, who again were Nell Ball and Katie Barker. It also introduced the critical literacy frameworks, which guided all teachers and were supported by a school-based literacy team. The third phase is what I would call the year of the coaches. At this stage, we were able to put Katie and Nell's training and their newly gained knowledge and skills to work. It was so rewarding to finally see the depth of reflection and the collective learning take hold to move the entire school forward. While maintaining a teaching assignment of literacy blocks, both Katie and Nell were able to co-learn with their colleagues. They were able to help them to be the best that they could be while continuing to hone their own craft as classroom teachers. We then entered into what I'll call phase 4, when we were able to refine and to further develop our work. And with the support of the district office as well as the Board of Education, Katie and Nell were able to transition to full-time coaching roles. Finally, we were able to see years of training and preparation come to full fruition in Linwood. And it was then that the journey at Linwood was shared with the Board of Education and with the community. And we were so thankful to hear the warm embrace of this work, as well as the shared pride and the outcomes and the accomplishments that we've observed. And we were excited to expand the coaching model to our other elementary schools at that time. So we're very thrilled to report to you that immediately following Linwood's program report, we began planning for what we called phase 5. And we knew well that our plans to expand and sustain would require us to build our own internal capacity to support this work in other schools. It was then that we also recognized that it would be far more effective and significantly less costly to establish a district-wide coaching model, which would be led ultimately by Katie and Nell, who became our in-house experts with coaching. And they were poised and ready to share their knowledge and their expertise with others. So during the 2018-19 school year, this capacity was built as both Katie and Nell completed another round of training and graduate study at Lesley University. During the spring of 2019, I would say the ship has officially sailed and our work had begun. Each school began with the creation of literacy teams, which engaged in deep, thought-provoking, and community-centered training facilitated by Katie and Nell, who are now our in-house experts. And I am so proud to introduce to you Katie Barker and Nell Ball, who are truly the pioneers in this work and I think have led this amazing professional journey for our teachers and ultimately for our students. So I'm going to turn it to Katie and Nell.
So, I'm Katie Barker. I'm the primary district trainer.
And I'm Nell Ball. I'm the intermediate district trainer.
So as Damien mentioned, over the last 7 years, Nell and I have been literacy coaches at Linwood. And last year we spent 5 weeks at Lesley University taking a graduate level training course to become district trainers of literacy coaches. The benefit of having district trainers is to help build long-term capacity of the coaching model, and it's a cost-saving measure for the district. It supports coherence across the schools by developing a common language and common goals around student learning.
So the role of the district trainer is really multifaceted. The district trainer is a professional developer. They're a literacy coach. They continue to be a teacher of literacy. We work closely with school principals and literacy teams. We act as a liaison between the administration, the Board of Education, and we also work as liaison with the faculty at Lesley University. However, the majority of our job is really as professional developer and coaches of coaches. We were coaches of teachers, but now our work and the work that we did at Lesley last year was really thinking about how do we work in developing our own literacy coaches and coaching them. And as Damien had said, there's school districts that will take teachers and make them coaches, and that's really how it happens. And I'm simplifying it, but without maybe all the training that goes into it. And there's this whole idea of having a highly trained coach, and there's reasons to have a highly trained coach. And so these teachers sitting here in front of you have decided that they want to be those coaches in their buildings and to support their buildings in that way. And our job is to provide them that training and coaching. They're going to be taking on more than 150 hours of professional development this year while they are full-time teaching. And while they're teaching and doing that professional development, Katie and I will also go in and work with them around their instruction. And so during our course, they'll be thinking and expanding their understanding of the reading and writing processes and how children's reading and writing behaviors change over time. They're going to continue to develop their keen observational skills of student learning behaviors and thinking about how the use of formal and informal data helps drive and understand their reading and writing, and it helps them plan to be responsive in their teaching and to meet the needs of the students in front of them. You know, I mean, as we know, our students are diverse and our population is changing, and we know we need to be constantly thinking about who's sitting in front of us and how are we meeting their needs. But the other thing that they're going to be getting through this training, and this is the tricky part, is working with adult learners. For any of you, teaching and working with adults is different than teaching and working with children. And you can be a really effective teacher, but it doesn't necessarily that you're going to be effective in working with adults. So a large part of their training will also be in learning how to work with adults, adult learners, developing skills of a literacy coach, developing the language of coaching. It's not about telling people what to do, it's about changing our habits of mind and thinking about how we think about student learning and having helping teachers take on that agency and through our language and inquiry and open-ended questioning that helps with that. It's learning how to plan and facilitate constructive professional development on literacy teaching and learning. Professional development that's worthwhile, that teachers feel like, you know, I did a lot of lesson plans today and I'm spending time away from my students, that when I go to this professional development session, I want to feel like I'm taking something back that's really going to help me understand my learners and be responsive to their needs. And it's acquiring group facilitation skills for leading team meetings and professional learning communities.
So I will let you take a moment to read and think about this definition of coaching. So we're going to give you a snapshot of what this coaching model can look like. This is also the same model that the coaches will be providing to their teachers. So we provide a professional development around a topic. The topic could be something like interactive read aloud. And during the professional development session, teachers will engage in reading, talking, observations of teaching, and reflecting on the topic. Every session focuses on understanding of the reading and writing process, how students learn to read and write, and the responsiveness of the teacher to the students that are right in front of them.
And then following professional development sessions, the teachers will try to implement some of their new understandings around the topic. And then as the coach, we'll go in and support them through a coaching cycle. The coaching cycle might look like something like we meet before going into observe some teaching and talk about what are the goals of the teaching, what are the goals of, so what are the goals that the teacher has for the lesson, but also what are the goals for themselves as a teacher of something that they want to work on or improve. And then sometimes we'll be observing the teacher, sometimes we'll go in and model a lesson, sometimes we'll co-teach a lesson together. And then at the end, we reflect on the lesson. And we think about, you know, what worked, what went well, and what are some areas of, did the teacher meet their goals, and what are some areas that maybe they want to continue to work on. This is the continuous nature of this model allows us to set goals around teaching and student learning. And each coaching session builds off the previous session, and the focus is always in the service of improving student achievement through teacher expertise.
So some of the highlights from the last year is in last February of last school year, we began working with school-based literacy teams through a series of team trainings. All 5 elementary schools compiled literacy teams to participate in this work. So teams were comprised of grade level teachers, reading teachers, ENL teachers, special education teachers, and a principal so that all stakeholders were represented.
And then each team had 3 full days of team training, and it provided time to build initial understandings of how to work together as a school-based literacy team. And during the time, schools reflected on building a literacy vision for teaching and learning. We went through a process for analyzing strengths and needs of school, for a school around literacy learning in order to develop action plans and goals. And we also had many shared literacy experiences and opportunities to dig deeper into our understandings and beliefs around the literacy framework and how children learn to read and write.
And in May, we had all 5 school-based literacy teams come together. We worked as school-based teams and then cross-building teams to collaborate and continue to develop a collective responsibility around our student learning. Literacy teams engage in reading and discussions to build coherence around our literacy beliefs, vision, and effective literacy instruction. We also had time to develop a further understanding of the role of data in school improvement. These school-based literacy teams will meet throughout the year to focus on goals and action plans developed through these team trainings. They will also work together with the coaches in training to implement professional development and literacy coaching models in their schools.
So this summer, we actually started our training work, and the teachers that we're going to introduce to you right now have already started and engaged in 30 hours of professional development. They came in during the summer for us all to work together and are already starting to rethink their practice in the classroom. Today, we actually were all together for professional development again. And you know, they're really dedicated individuals who believe and love children and believe in student learning and the value of teacher expertise in improving student outcomes. And so we want to introduce them to you right now. When we call your name, why don't you stand up, okay? So from Altamont, we have Missy Reguette and Annemarie Farrell. Missy's our primary coach, Annemarie intermediate. From Gilder, you guys can stand up. From Guilderland, we have Christina Ryan, who's training as a primary coach. From Linwood, we have Angelica Stone, who's training as a primary coach. From Pine Bush, we have Meredith Schaefer, who's training as a primary coach. And Laura Opperman, who's training as an intermediate coach. And from Westmere, we have Stephanie Brennan, training as a primary coach, and Melissa DeLuca as an intermediate coach. Yep, coaches. And now we have a few coaches who are going to come up and share some reflections about their experiences so far.
As you just heard, I'm Stephanie Brennan. I'm a first grade teacher at Westmere Elementary School. I can see some of my former students here, so I love to see their faces. In the 2016-2017 school year, I was part of the Westmere Elementary literacy team that was lucky enough to travel to Lesley University. We attended 2 separate sessions, one in March and another in April. I was excited to begin this work with my colleagues across the K-5 grade levels, as well as Dr. Beanie and our ENL and special education teachers. We shared many experiences with one another. We explored work about our school culture, values, mission, theory, and vision. We talked about ways we could build a cohesive learning community that sustains our students' literacy growth and their success. How students could develop a sense of agency that would push their learning and, and build their capacity. All of this work had a significant impact on my teaching and my thinking. As Nell and Katie mentioned, we did work at FMS, and honestly, no words can truly describe to you what our team experienced working together. They led us through many shared experiences to help our team think about ways in which we can create an ideal model using a variety of essential components. I'm very grateful to be a part of this amazing work under their guidance and expertise. I was really intrigued and energized and changed by all of this work. that when the opportunity presented itself to interview for the primary literacy coaching position at Westmere, I decided to apply for the position and was offered this position in the spring. Our training work began this past summer, as Nell and Katie just said, in a full week of training at Linwood with other training coaches across the district. We were also very lucky to have Peter Johnston share his knowledge about one of his books called Choice Words one morning during our week, and Melissa will talk to you about that shortly. At the conclusion of our training this summer, I knew that I wanted to try and implement new ideas in my classroom that I had experienced. One example is that I'm focusing on my interactive read-alouds, as well as how I set up my classroom library for my students this year. I'm eager to see how student achievement and success is impacted by my work. Thank you so much for your time.
Good evening. I'm Melissa DeLuca. I teach 4th grade at Westmere. So the literacy coaches in training read the book Choice Words by Peter Johnston this summer, and he brought us to a common understanding that, quote, the language that teachers and their students use in the classroom is a big deal. We are building identities in students that provide them with a sense of agency or taking an active role in their learning. I am a veteran teacher of 18 years, and I have always thought that one of my strengths as a teacher was connecting with students and their families, but I know there's always room for improvement. And having the time to read a professional book like Choice Words and talk with Peter Johnston and my fellow coaches during our summer training about how to better our practice has had a direct impact on my students from day one of this school year. My first student interaction was actually before day one, and it occurred in August in an email. In my annual summer letter to families, I always welcome students and parents to email me to say hello or ask any questions they may have. So here's an excerpt from an exchange that I had with one of my students, whose name I changed. Hi, Mrs. DeLuca, it's Sandy. I'm in your class this year. I am super excited. Before reading Choice Words, my response would have been, I'm so excited to have you in my class. It's going to be a great year. But instead, I said, hi, Sandy. I'm so happy to have you in our class this year. I can't wait to see what you're going to teach your classmates and myself. I began to think about how to get my student Sandy to identify as being both a teacher and a student who will act with agency, because I know that words mean nothing if they aren't backed up by actions. My students know that I expect them to teach one another as well as the adults in our room, and that this is part of their identity as a 4th grader and community member of our classroom. Since meeting Sandy, she has been put in the role of teacher. For example, today in math class, I chose to use these words with her. Sandy, I partnered you up with Zach today because I know you can teach him what he's missed about factors and multiples. You could teach him by modeling your thinking when you play the game. Say aloud the multiples of the factor and then ask him to say his thinking too. I'm going to check in with you to see how your teaching is going. If you were to come in my class tomorrow and ask how many teachers we have in our class, they're going to tell you there's about 25. Here's another example of the influence of Peter Johnston. On the first day of school, I knew I had a student in my class who had struggled in the past years at our school. In fact, while he was in 3rd grade, he was unable to ride the bus for part of the year due to making some poor choices. So when this student entered my room, Peter Johnston was in my ear, reminding me to talk to the student in a way that would show him how I respect him and expect him to act in a specific way, with responsibility and agency. I told him how impressed I was that he came on that first day of school with his student questionnaire completed. What a responsible student, I said to him. Half an hour later, I said, I know how responsible you are. Could you take this to the office? They need our lunch count. I've said to him, your classmate needs some help with this, and you're the perfect friend to help. I've used him as a yes example every day since school has begun, and he has lived up to that expectation and hasn't made me believe otherwise. I'm helping him develop his identity as a student who is responsible, well-behaved, and one who makes good choices and can teach others. He even took the lessons he learned from a biography in school home to his family. The next day, he eagerly said, guess what, Mrs. DeLuca? I showed the video to my mom and brothers about Emmanuel. I made these small changes in the way I speak from reading choice words and from the work we did as coaches over the summer. Although the shifts in my language were subtle, they've had a huge impact in my classroom in just 2 weeks. I ask you to consider the ripple effect and the bigger picture in the work we will be able to do in the future, not just with how we speak to our students, but in how we teach reading and writing, word study, the use of interactive read aloud. The work we will do as literacy coaches will impact all of our classrooms, our entire school, our school district, and beyond.
Good evening, I'm Annemarie Farrell. I'm a third grade teacher at Altamont Elementary School. Looking back on the work that we as coaches in training have been doing, I came across a Post-it note attached to an article that really reflects the kind of thinking that comes with this work. It was a reminder to myself. It said, it's not if I'm doing it right or wrong, but am I doing it with purpose? Literacy coaching promotes reflective instruction that is student-centered. It pushes you to think about the why you are doing something and then the how. When you look at your students through an admiring lens, you are better able to see what a child is doing and see where they should go next. Having another set of eyes and meaningful conversations with a colleague deepens your own understandings. It benefits both teachers because it is a collaborative effort, not individual. It promotes talk about our students and our responsiveness to them. There becomes a depth of understanding from discussions and our work together. Our practices grow collectively. This work becomes a habit of mind, and it reaches well beyond the literacy block. It was there when I made decisions about my classroom environment in order to foster a stronger community, in creating our daily schedule to think about students' needs across the day, making a shift from a science and social studies block to an inquiry workshop. These were all purposeful, intentional decisions. Common language and agreements about shared understandings and beliefs across grade levels and buildings will empower teachers and students, therefore transforming our schools. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Beth Feeney, principal at Westmere Elementary School, and I'd like to share with you some of my reflections as a member of our literacy team and as the principal watching these different phases unfold. Being part of the literacy team at Westmere is not about what teachers are doing wrong or having to be bad in order to get better. It's about improving your individual professional craft. It's developing a deep understanding of both the why and the how of what you're doing that leads to student success. Think about this for a moment. Many other professions have coaches. Surgeons have coaches. They're constantly learning about new tools and new techniques to improve their practice. Professional athletes have coaches. Even the #1 tennis player in the world, Rafa Nadal, has a coach. They may be the best in the world, and they still have a coach working to get better. In addition, our student populations in Guilderland have changed dramatically. Students are coming to school with a very diverse background, a wide range of skills and abilities, from very young learners with little to maybe no preschool experience, to students who come to us from out of state, even out of the country, even speaking multiple language, or students that are economically disadvantaged and have had very limited access to books, writing materials, or language. Building a solid, literate foundation is essential for their success. Coaches help our teachers learn about children through different lenses by being responsive to student needs and helping teachers be as good as they can be. One of the things that I've personally seen from our literacy team at Westmere is the excitement about professional collaboration and ongoing learning. This is not another committee. It's not another set of meetings. Teachers are excited to come and talk about what they're reading, reflecting on their practice, and openly sharing what they're learning. This is having a direct impact on our entire building, including those beyond the literacy team, and ultimately improving student achievement.
All right, good evening. I'm Alan Lockwood. I'm the principal of Guilderland Elementary School, and I would like to talk to you a little bit about my experience going through the process of creating a literacy team and starting the coaching program at GES. Last year, as this initiative got its legs underneath itself and we established training dates with Nell and Katie, I had the task of finding people to join the literacy team. And this was not initially an easy task. Teachers are protective of their time, as they should be, and they're wary of jumping on what may be a passing fad, as they should be. But as we talked about this more as a building, we got some people who were intrigued at the possibilities that this program offered and volunteered to give it a try. And as we heard before, we got our language arts coordinator, an ENL teacher, a reading teacher, special education teacher, and grade level representatives. Truly broad representation. And so we went to our first training date, not entirely sure what to expect. I was excited to work with Nell and Katie and to begin to develop the team and to really envision the ways in which this team could operate and have an impact on our teachers and consequently improve student learning. Most importantly, perhaps, as a team, we began to understand how the work that our literacy team does and how the work our coach will be doing will be deeply embedded in the culture of our school and the daily work of instruction. Coming out of these training days, I know that our whole literacy team was energized and enthusiastic about the work before us. You may find this hard to believe, but I don't often have teachers coming up to me saying, when are we going to meet again? But after we finished our literacy team training, that's exactly what happened through the end of the year. And we have begun meeting this year and laying out plans for what's ahead for us. From my perspective as a principal, I look forward to the many benefits that this work can and will have for our students. Everything from ensuring that we have a shared vision for our literacy instruction to better data analysis and responsive coaching that meets the needs of the many talented teachers that we have. There are many benefits to the new teachers who often find that literacy instruction is the most challenging aspect of the work, and they will now be able to work side by side with a professional coach to really think about, reflect on their instruction, both on a broad class-wide basis down to the individual level. Our experienced teachers, too, will benefit from this work, working with the philosophy that this work is about growth for all rather than about remediation of deficits. I know that the teachers of GES and all across the district value the opportunity to expand our toolboxes and to continue to have the dialogues that we need to have that bring us closer together while improving the work that we all do with children. So thank you very much for your support in this endeavor. It's very exciting work.
All right, I'm going to wrap this up here, and we will open it up to some questions, but I do need to just circle back. First, you never cease to amaze me. I can't tell you how impressed I am by your work and your words tonight, so keep it up. You're doing a phenomenal job. But I do want to go to something that's far less exciting than the words that you just heard from our fantastic coaches in training, and point out that there are some critical linkages and alignments to this effort to some federal legislation. So you may recall that back in the spring, Dr. Wiles and I gave a presentation called The State of the District, and we shared with you some changes in language and changing definitions around professional development and expectations that come from the law that is known as the Every Student Succeeds Act. Simply stated, it's the law that has replaced No Child Left Behind. So it is the measure by which schools and districts are held accountable. It really establishes some of the rules and regulations that we must abide by. And there are some pieces of it that I actually think are some pretty good shifts. So one of the new areas of focus is an emphasis and an expectation that professional development be job embedded. There is a maintaining of a focus on teaching and learning with professional development as a critical means to improving both processes. The expectation is that our professional development efforts are sustained. They are not standalone, they are not one day, they are not short-term workshops, but they are intensive, they are collaborative, they are job-embedded, data-driven, and classroom-focused. And I would dare say everything that you just heard from our coaches in training reflect those expectations. The professional development is ongoing, and it is facilitated by skilled staff using a variety of research-based learning designs. Again, I think reflected perfectly in our work with coaching. It engages established learning communities in a cycle of continuous improvement. And lastly, there is an expectation that we are aligning our use of federal dollars, funds, in the form of Title I, II, and IV, to evidence-based professional learning models. And this, again, is very much reflected in our work with coaching. So the work we are doing is certainly reflective of the expectations that are placed upon schools and school districts at this point. We are focused on engaging in these cycles of continuous improvement, and we are very much looking forward to what the future will bring with our coaches and the wealth of expertise that they're going to bring to our classrooms and to our teachers. So we want to thank you, and if there are questions, we are open to taking them at this point in time. But before we do, I just want to point out that the last slide in the presentation, there are some additional resources there for you as well. I recommend the video. It's really quite interesting. So questions?
Go ahead, Barb.
I just have a real basic one. It says P for primary, I for intermediate. Was that like K to 2 and then 3 to 5?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Oh.
So, background, I was in technology. There's a huge infusion of technology that comes into the classroom. Just because you give a child a Chromebook or an iPad doesn't mean they're suddenly going to increase their learning ability.
Absolutely.
Unless someone knows how to use that as an effective tool. I like the idea that you brought about the embedded coaching, because in statewide we deal with K-12, and the biggest complaint that the teachers had was, professional development, that's the only way they were going to be able to hump to try and again, in this case it was embedding technology into the whole pedagogy. And there wasn't the time, and so the fact that you're somehow lacing it into, I guess you could put it into the workday somehow.
Yeah.
Okay. If you find it successful with literacy, you see transitioning into other aspects within the district, or other disciplines.
Very much so, very much so. But I will say that literacy spans over every discipline and subject area. So that for us,
you have to read your math problem to be able to
no question about it. I think we're also very fortunate in our district. We have, you brought up technology, so I'll speak directly to that. We have positions at every one of our schools called technology liaisons. And again, classroom teachers who really bring forward that forward thinking, I would say that innovation into our classrooms, and they really work directly with their colleagues and peers to help support them in their use of technology in a classroom, because your point is exactly spot on about you can hand a device to someone, but if you're not giving them the support and the guidance to be able to utilize it effectively, it's not going to really take hold. So likewise, we have math specialists at our elementary level that serve in a coaching capacity as well, not quite to the extent yet anyway that we have with the literacy coaches. But I think that idea of embedded professional development within our district, I think we are well positioned to do that. And we will continue to look for opportunities and efforts where we can strengthen that and expand that. Sure.
Speaking to the student management part of this, it seems like this whole program has had a real positive impact on the student management and the teachers. I would love to hear from one of the teachers as to how it has directly affected their dealing with students and their student management as a whole this year. We all have those disruptive students and that type of thing. Obviously, engaging them is going to do that, and it seems like this is really enforcing, positive reinforcement.
Anyone want to comment on that?
I mean, I spoke a little bit about that, just the way that I'm speaking to my students. I've always been respectful and kind, and I felt I've always connected with them, but just really tweaking my language and just trying to build in that agency so that they want to take control of their learning and that they...
It makes them feel inclusive.
It does, yeah.
And seeing each other like a strengths model.
Yeah.
I think when you look at kids and what they can do versus looking at kids and what they can't do, you automatically set up a layer of success. And
open a door.
Right.
For their success.
And it's teacher decision making around over the small group and one on one is very important. And when I hope students get able to go and improve they at a short period of time engage them and meet their needs. And sometimes what happens is, for a work that's super hard, I might start asking them. So if I can meet them where they're at, they'll be engaged.
Thank you. Gloria, you had a question?
Well, I was going to say, I was really impressed with I like the connection with the university piece, because often research is done and it's put on a shelf or put it in a book, and then it never makes its way down because the teachers are too busy teaching. But this is such, a nice mesh, the training that's been done, and then bringing it to back and forth, and that constant flow back and forth, I think, is crucial between, those who are doing the research, what the theory says, and then what actually happens when you put that into practice. That came across very well. And also the passion came across very well. I mean, you could tell people are excited about what they're doing, which is like, you're already there. I mean, you're there when you got that behind you. I was curious about the connection to parents. Have they been brought in on this approach, and how has that been done?
So, if we look back at Linwood, we've shared, throughout our houses, throughout I'm trying to remember. I'm getting my over here.
Your coach over there.
Right, my coach. But we also had a newsletter that we would share with parents. Teachers would share it through their newsletters through emails and my comments. You saw different approaches that we're using in the classroom. And then the new coaches.
No, would you mind going to the mic? I'm sorry.
So I was saying the things that we did at Linwood as far as bringing parents into it and informing them, but through videos that we've made, through newsletters that we have, open house, teachers then sharing things also when parents come in for learning cafes or for on their websites. And then our coaches in training just recently sent home letters to all of their families explaining what they would be doing this year. And, because they will be out of the classroom a couple times a month, and so we really wanted their families to understand the reason for that, and, that they would be bringing back these new, understandings and implementing things, and it would benefit their students. So they've been able to communicate with families that way. And I don't know if any of you have done anything else.
Well, I would think that, you mentioned, one kid went home with an idea, to a parent. I think that kind of stuff's going to happen. So that kind of communication is going to happen anyway. They could be supportive as well. I mean, parents could build on that.
Other questions? I just want to comment, I'm totally impressed with the commitment by all of these teachers at all of the schools, because it's not like just signing up for, some professional development. It's like committing to changing your practice, which is not something you have to do. So, thank you. I think we'll take 2 minutes so people can stay, unless you want to stay for the rest of the meeting. Usually they don't. I was going to say, we can go on with the agenda unless people... All right, so we can either go on with the agenda, or I'm happy to suspend the rules if people would like to discuss anything related to public comment. Ben?
So,
Do we have to make a motion to suspend the rules? Someone want to?
I'll make a motion to
Tim?
suspend the rules.
A second? Sean? Okay, go ahead.
do we have to vote?
Oh, yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 8-0. Go ahead, Ben.
So, you know, the only thing I want to say is to offer a little bit of framing. You know, I've read our policy a bunch of times. I don't know that it needs to be changed. You know, but everything our district does says something. We're always sending a message, whether we intend to or not, or whether we intend to send that message or not. And sometimes that message is really important. It's worth discussion, even if the actual issue doesn't seem that important. You know, for example, you know, graduation seating, you know, we didn't change the children or their achievements at all. We just changed the message a little bit. And I think it, you know, from my perspective, in this case of bus stops, the first message we're sending new families, some of them, is no, we can't help you. That's, you know, maybe that's what we have to say, but that's how we're starting off this 13-plus year relationship with some of these families. We're starting off with a no. And I'm not saying there's not very good reasons for that, but I'm saying it's certainly worth discussion, certainly worth looking into, finding some way to start off these relationships with a yes. Yes, we can help you, you know, yes, we want your kids to be safe. Yes, we're willing to bend things a little bit to bring you into our family. So does that mean we change our policy? I don't know. I think the policy can be read to accommodate the requests. That's not my call. But you know, that's what I want to say, is that it's not really so much about the bus stops. It's about what message are we sending as a school district when, you know, we don't fight to always say yes for things like this.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think during the discussions or during the issues raised by the parents, and I thought back, because I thought back when my daughter started kindergarten, and we got that placement, and it was not in front of the house, and I think we were like a little taken back by it. But what we, and this, I'm not advocating for this. You know, we worked as a neighborhood to solve the problem. And so I'm certainly in favor of a situation that doesn't net increase the number of stops, but if neighbors are willing to work together and find a compromise that is workable by all of us, then why not do that? I think it's a slippery path going down and saying yes to every time somebody wants a change to a bus stop or a bus stop moved, but I think where some neighbors can get together and who live it every day and can provide us a reasonable solution, I think it's upon us to really listen to that and take that advice into consideration.
I just want to respond that I totally empathize with the parents having kids in the district as well, getting on the bus. Actually, my kid's bus stop is not in front of you can't see it from our house. So I had a kindergartner last year who I walked to the bus stop. But I was also on policy, I think, 2 years ago when there was, you know, we had another parent come to us concerned about the safety of the bus stop. And so I'm not in favor of, you know, picking and choosing when we can bend the rules or not. I think we have a policy and a process in place. So after it goes to Neil Sanders, I think the next step is that it goes to the commissioner. And that's what happened last time with the parent. They were told no, the bus stop was not going to change. Then they followed up with the commissioner. If I remember correctly, the commissioners stayed with the district's decision. So I totally empathize, but I feel like if we start making changes and bending the rules for some, where do we draw the line to do that for other people? I don't think it's fair. We can limit the response to like a minute, because we haven't even started the agenda. The rest of
Understand slippery slope arguments. I actually should teach them in logic and philosophy at the University of Albany. I think, though, in some cases, you have to look at the circumstances that surround the actual bus stop in this particular case. This is a little bit different than some others, and I totally understand that you can't make exceptions for everybody. But like I've said before, good policies, right, allow for you to take a look at certain circumstances. It can't be absolute. There are some situations that need to be looked at a little bit differently. And that's what we're advocating and saying. Please take a look at our situation. We are different than others. We're not just complaining because our kid has to walk a certain distance. It's unsafe to get there. Did you want to say something more, Joe?
Yep, very briefly. My position on this is very much aligned with Mr. McGuire. We're not looking at increasing the number of stops. We're just asking the district, the board, to look at the disposition of the current stops, which if you look at a like a measles chart or a scatter of the routes, there are groupings that are not logical. In a stretch of road that's a straight run from here to the clock, I'm exaggerating, there's 5 stops in 16 houses. Between 1653 and 1608, there are no stops. That's 16 houses, 2 stops. The other place, 10 houses, 5 stops. It just, the measles chart, the scatter points logically from the ground, doesn't feel right, doesn't look right. There's an opportunity to improve. It's not my job, but it's my job as a parent to come ask for the board to advocate on behalf of the community, to look at things and see if we can make it make sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just jump in here for a second? We have looked at this route, and there are too many stops. So this would be and is on our list of routes that we would look at. We typically don't change a route once a school year begins, because for every family that we make happier, we make others who are less happy. So Mr. McGuire's comment about looking at this as a neighborhood perhaps has some merit if everyone can agree to different stops that still fall within the parameters of our policy. That might be a reasonable solution going forward. It's kind of the middle of the road here, but that would require changing stops mid-year. And Neil is looking at me like, we don't typically do this.
Once parents' schedules get fixed, it gets harder if they have daycare arrangements.
Right.
And timing.
But we can look at that.
Yeah, we certainly can.
In all fairness, we can find out from the school where the school bus would be for August, and we did set in motion appealing to
The other thing I want to jump in on this is how we communicate our transportation to our brand new families with entering kindergarten students. We had our administrative team meet yesterday, and we talked about this very thing. And can we get better? And the answer is yes, at communicating earlier how we do transportation. Things like we don't have door-to-door kindergarten stops. There's a myth that we did, but we haven't in years and years and years, that we have intersection-based stops, that, you know, the expectation is that no one will walk more than 0.2 miles in K-5, but we can't make the walk from every driveway to every bus stop equal for every community member. It's just like not possible. But I agree that getting a postcard in those anxious weeks of August is not the best. And we have learned from this, and we're going to do a better job next year. We're going to start communicating in January when we first start meeting with our families. So, you know, we can learn and grow, just like we heard from our coaches today. So we appreciate your persistence and bringing this matter to our attention.
So am I correct in understanding that the district is open to hearing a proposal from them in the next few weeks?
I think we need to have transportation look at it, because they're the ones who figured out the bus stops based on a variety of things. And maybe there are some alternatives, but I think everyone in the neighborhood is going to have to agree to them. Or we're going to have another set of parents here next time saying, well, now it's not in my line of sight. So we'll look at it.
Right, and I think, just as a person who has this stop, we're at 1608, the next one is 3 houses down at 1601. We can definitely have that conversation, and we could probably engage them to put in a phone call with Mr. Sanders and the district and see if we can progress that. Is anyone opposed to that conversation? Thank you for everybody's time and patience as we take agency on behalf of our...
Touche.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Next on the agenda, we have the minutes from the August 13th, 2019 board meeting. Can I have a motion? Barb? Second? Tim? Any comments or questions? No. Okay, we're gonna approve. All in favor? I'm going to abstain because I was not there, and I don't know if Sean. And were you there, Barb? Oh, you were there. Okay, it says absent, so maybe we should change that.
She was in executive session. She was here for...
Oh, okay, okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye, passes 6-0.
2 abstentions.
And 2 abstentions, thank you. Next, we have the CSE and CPSE recommendations. Can I have a motion? Gloria? Second, Judy? Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0. And next, we have the personnel agenda. Can I have a motion? Sean? Second, Ben? Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0. Next, we have information, and Damien, I think you're up.
Thanks very much. Just an update, a bit of a reminder to you as well, that in 2017, Guilderland High School started a backpack program as a support to help students receive supplemental food over the weekend. This free voluntary program is intended to provide food resources for students when school is not in session. Focuses on weekends, holidays, school breaks. Backpacks are filled on Fridays and before breaks, and they contain non-perishable, individually portioned nutritious foods. The students are able to discreetly pick up their backpacks, and their participation in the program is kept confidential. The program is supported through private donations and grants, so we're always appreciative of donations from the community. And if there are donations out there, they can be addressed to teacher Joan McGrath at Guilderland High School, who deserves a huge amount of credit for this program, which has really been a tremendous boost for some of our students. And we have some news from our music department. So each year, thousands of student musicians in New York State compete for an opportunity to be selected for the prestigious NYSSMA Conference All-State Music Ensembles. Admission to these highly selective groups is based upon the score received the previous spring during the NYSSMA Solo Evaluation Festival, where each student performed before a certified adjudicator who carefully evaluated every aspect of their performance. The Guilderland High School Music Department is proud to announce that 7 students were recognized for their exemplary performances, including Jesse Cohen-Greenberg for mixed chorus, Morgan Dempsey for treble chorus, Aiden Fusco for symphonic band, Alyssa Coe for vocal jazz, Alan Wang, string orchestra, Tracy Way, symphony orchestra, and Kenny Yamashita for symphonic band. These talented students will spend 4 days rehearsing in Rochester with gifted students from across the state, with the event culminating in a concert at Kilburn Hall at Eastman School of Music. Jesse will be singing in the All-State Mixed Chorus under the direction of Dr. Jerry Blackstone from the University of Michigan. Morgan will sing in the All-State Treble Chorus under the direction of Dr. Lori Hetzel from the University of Kentucky. Alyssa will sing in the All-State Vocal Jazz under the direction of Rosanna Eckert. Alan will perform with the All-State String Orchestra under the direction of Dr. James Mick from Ithaca College. Tracy will perform in the Symphony Orchestra under the direction of Donald Schleicher from the University of Illinois, and Aiden and Kenny will perform in the Symphonic Band under the direction of Jay Gephardt from Purdue University. And additionally, we commend the following students who were chosen as alternates in the various all-state ensembles. They are Aiden Doyle, Hiram Durfee, Grace Lininger, Vivian Redmond, and Glenn Treschel. And certainly we want to extend congratulations to all of the musicians, their teachers, parents for this outstanding accomplishment.
Thank you, Damien. Next, school business. Neil?
First item this evening is the New York State Department of Transportation Bus Inspection System Operator Profile. All school buses in New York State are regularly inspected by the New York State Department of Transportation. New York State DOT recently issued the annual results of the school bus inspections they performed on district fleet for the period April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2019. That aligns with the state fiscal year. The report identifies the number and percentages of vehicles that were passed or were placed out of service due to one or more defects. The Guilderland Central School District pass rate for this time period is 100%, which is well above the statewide average pass rate of 95.5%. Credit for this achievement and appreciation for their constant diligence in maintaining our school bus fleet to the highest standards goes to Fleet Supervisor Mitch Parkner Sr. and mechanics Cal Dunstan, Joe Falzo, Justin LeBombard, Ryan Nix, Joe Spalding, Dan Weber, and Fat Lamb. Next item this evening is just some information for you that the annual financial audit of the 2018-19 fiscal year is nearly complete. The public presentation and acceptance of the audit report is tentatively scheduled for the October 15th, 2019 board meeting.
Jim?
Is it okay to go back to the previous item?
In school business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let Neil finish all of it. So going back to the New York State Department of Transportation Bus Inspection System Operator Profile, I wondered if this would be a time where we can talk about the story that was in the news last week, since it applies in this area. So I'm just asking if that's okay.
I mean, yeah, you're free to discuss.
Okay. All right. And I would start out by saying, you know, this is a great report for, you know, we teachers love giving 100% to our students, and it's great to hear that the maintenance department and the mechanics are definitely on board there and way above the statewide average, so that's great. I think there's probably credit also given to the bus drivers who are responsible a lot for making sure the buses get in for repairs, but I think that's a great thing for our staff. I wanted to pivot to talk about the story that was in the news last week, and I basically want to approach it from just looking at the Board Governance Accountability Training of School Board Members handbook. And there's an item in there on page 9 that's called Duty of Obedience, and it says board members have a duty to ensure that the institution complies with all applicable laws and does not engage in any unauthorized activities. So I guess I wanted to pursue this a little bit in open session, just so we can kind of clarify this story. And if you go back, and this was also stated that we would be talking about this in a memo that was up on the school district website from August 16th, that we would be discussing this. And with that memo, there was mention of a 2003, it's not policy, but a 2003 statement, I'll call it, where mechanics were allowed to use their own tools at the garage to do repairs, and they would also be allowed to use their own tools at the garage on their own vehicles, on their personal vehicles, on off hours. So I think I stated that correctly. That's what was on the website on August 16th, and I've been confused ever since, because my understanding of this whole issue is that, and if you go to the headline on the Channel 13 story, it was allegations work is being done to private vehicles on company time at the Guilderland School District bus garage, and further it goes down to say that the work is happening during school hours by upper management. And I think the gist of that was that there was work being done on different sets of vehicles by supervisors, not the mechanics' vehicles. So somewhere along the line, I don't know how that got twisted around, because it's my understanding that those who have either gone on camera on record or haven't, that their concern is not with the mechanics, because there is kind of a loose policy for them to work on their own vehicles. It's more to do with, I'll use the phrase that Channel 13 used, upper management, having work done on their vehicles. So I think that's the bigger issue, and that's the problem. I thought it was interesting, if you look through a lot of the legwork that Channel 13 did, going to a lot of different school districts for guidance here, and you get, again, there's a lot of districts that don't have a bus garage, so this doesn't apply to them. But of the districts that do, there's a lot of useful information about how this kind of practice would be prohibited. I thought the Hunter-Tannersville HTC, they say, is just like Averill Park, absolutely no work on personal vehicles. To do so would be flagrant misuse of public funds. And if an issue or accident occurred on the school property, the school then is liable. So I guess I just wanted to frame this as, I think it's a concern on a couple different levels, and I don't know if we can be a little more reactive and proactive at the same time as far as liability goes, and as far as any kind of a policy might go. But I guess I would end with, I'm just wondering what we're going to do about the allegations, and what are we going to do to make sure we're more in line with other school districts and have more diligence on the use of public facilities for private use or private gain. So I think it's a discussion that has to be had, and I think it's a different discussion than we might have later.
Well, it's my understanding that this was during a school day, but it was on, break time, so it was not, he was not on the clock. Mechanics have to bring their own tools. As far as I know, they have to buy their tools, bring their tools, and if they're doing that, their tools are here so that they can do the work that they have to do, and to say, but buy another set for home or whatever it is not a sensible solution. And there was a picture somewhere, maybe it was on the Channel 13 report, of the snowmobile, which had been there, worked on weekends, never during the school day. And I just was disappointed that it was such a big deal was made out of it, because I think that we trust these people as professionals and we treat them that way. And as I say, with their own tools, it's hard to say, well, you can't use them, for a half an hour to fix a car when you're taking a break. Whereas if you were home and you were doing something, a half an hour is quite a bit of time to get something done. Our buses are 100%, which means things are being well taken care of, that the district's money is not being thrown away on these people. They're working hard and they're working well.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with anything that you said, but there are certain ethics that you have to go by, and if you're in a public facility, there is an issue about using anything. Yes, they're using their own tools, but if you bring a car in and put it up on the lift, that's not their own tools. If you have the lights on in the building, that's not theirs. So there is, again, when you look through some of these other districts, the phrase that jumped out at me quite a bit was theft of services. And I think that's something that we really need to look at or investigate or take seriously. And even I would be concerned, you just said that they're working in there on the weekends. I'm a little unsure how that's okay. You know, can the cafeteria staff go in on the weekends and, you know,
I don't know, these
have a
people, this has been,
barbecue
you
or,
said in 2000, and since 2003, as far as you could find, that was a policy that, you know, on their own time. So does that, when their own time is always when the school district is not up and running, if you will. And that's been the policy since 2003. I don't think that anybody was breaking any commitment. That just based on past practice and the way that we trust these people to do their work well, and they do.
Any other comments? Sean?
What's the district's liability if somebody were injured while repairing a private vehicle inside the school's facilities? Let's say the lift failed while a private vehicle was on it and it injured somebody.
So I'll ask Neil, we talked about this a little bit to jump in, but we are covered. It just is a matter of, it does add additional risk. But we still would have insurance and still would be covered.
Other comments or questions? Barb?
Just, I think what Tim is trying to differentiate is between the mechanics that we know are covered by that 2003 memo. Are the supervisors also covered by that memo? I don't recall the memo, so I don't know if both levels are covered.
I believe it was always interpreted that way. I can't recall exactly if the wording is there, but it was basically anybody that worked on the repair side of the shop.
That's not how that reads at all. It specifically says the mechanics can work on their personal vehicles. And when we suddenly start looking at a snowmobile as a personal vehicle, I mean, we're not in Alaska. So you can kind of understand work on a car, oil change, rotating tires, or a truck. But, you know, the slippery slope phrase was used earlier. This is a slippery slope that has a lot of liability attached to it. One thought that a person had was, you know, what if somebody's working in there on the weekend and they're welding and there's an accident of some sort and the whole place goes up? Then what happens with the district? I mean, I don't want to be, I don't like playing the what-if game, but we have to when we're sitting here in these chairs and trying to safeguard the district. So I would also, I guess I would point out also in this board governance accountability handbook, on page 12, it says board members must balance their role as supporter for the institution's success against their governance role as overseers of the institution's management to ensure that assets are used properly, laws and regulations are followed, and the public interest is best served. I'm not so sure the public interest is being best served here. I think the interest of some people is being very well served. Again, this is, there's just something that's not right here. And if you talk to state workers, they just laugh at this, about how they're trained to not use equipment for personal uses or anything like that, or especially during the workday. This thing about the weekends, I don't know. I mean, it just boggles my mind. If the buildings would be opened up on the weekend for somebody to go in and work on their personal vehicle, I don't know. I don't understand that at all. I get what the memo says from 2003, But, boy, it seems like there's a amazingly wide-open interpretation of things going on. I'm not comfortable with it at all.
Ben?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Ben.
sorry. Ben,
Yeah,
then Judy.
I think that Tim hit on something with his second quote from that handbook. As you all know, I'm concerned with messages that we send, and I'm concerned with the culture that we're creating in schools for students and employees. And I think we're all aware that there are other issues going on, with our transportation department. I think we're all aware of how big a budget item transportation is for our district, and how important it is to have them along with us as we try new things like a new start time for various schools, keeping our fleet in tip-top shape, as we heard tonight. So, there's a message that we send if we don't address this, and there's a message that we send if we do. We want to create a culture in our bus garage that balances concern for equipment with being, being supportive of our employees and making sure that they're, they feel like they belong and that we take care of them, so that they take care of us. We in a few minutes we'll discuss, the contract for teaching assistants, right? And they're going to get a raise because everyone always gets a raise. Is that a good use of district funds? Well, it's a balance, right? We want more TAs. We want good quality TAs. We want our students to be served. We have to pay for that, and so again, there's a balance here. I think it's worthy of discussion. I'm not sure where I come out because it does require balance, and I think the only way to really tell which way is the better way is to not just read Channel 13's news story, but to look into this more ourselves. Be proactive while being reactive, in Tim's words.
Gloria?
I agree a lot with what you just said, Ben, in terms of this is worthy of discussion. And we happen to have begun that discussion. That discussion was begun last August in executive session. What bothers me right now is instead of continuing that discussion, Channel 13 is now involved. Now, how that happened is beyond me because we have not even finished our discussion. But it leaked from our executive session to the news. And that is a very big concern of mine because this is being made some huge issue when I agree with you, Ben. We probably could have come to some agreement very easily because we're pretty reasonable people sitting around this table. But I feel that we've been abused because we were brought into a situation, we were brought into that situation, we were asked to take some, we gave some advice as to how we could proceed, and then before we even had an opportunity to react, it's on the news. That's where right now I'm very concerned about, and that bothers me. I think we can handle the other piece. We're all very reasonable, we'll listen to each other, we'll come to some conclusion. This, however, is an attack on us as a group.
Tim?
This is not an attack. And absolutely, if you watch the news story, where this started. You had employees who went to the news. That's where that's the genesis for this. So I don't know how you can sit there and not acknowledge that.
The only quotes I saw were quotes from you. I mean, a lot of the quotes I saw were interview with you, which I had no idea why you were even talking at that point.
There were 2 quotes from me,
right.
And they were expressing my opinion, not representative of the board at all. But most of that story involved former employees who were interviewed on camera. So you're skipping over all of that. You're glossing over all
I care about, Tim, is our behavior as board members. We discussed that in executive session. That means it stays in executive session. You have no comment. None of us have comment. If individuals, employees of ours wish to go to the news, we can't stop them, but we have an obligation to keep confidentiality of executive session. I feel that that has been broken because you spoke about it.
I disagree. And I guess the only other point I would make, I'm going to blank on it now, but there was no breach of confidentiality. And when there was information shared on the website on August 16th, that put information out there too. So this was a story that was out there, was out in the community, it was being discussed. It ends up on Channel 13 News because people went there. They did their job and called around for comment. And I made comment. And again, I'll read, this board governance accountability training handbook is excellent. Very early on, it says school board members do have a right to express their own views and opinions on school district issues, so long as the board member clearly distinguishes their personal views from the views of the board. That was clearly done here. So there's no breach of confidentiality whatsoever. You can think what you think.
I do.
But I followed that language specifically.
As a member of the board, though, you have an obligation to abide by the confidentiality rules we set.
Which I did.
Which I don't think you did. That's my opinion.
And it was mentioned in the reporting about executive session, and she asked for the notes from executive session. So they knew that it had been discussed in executive session.
I know. I mean, my quote was very clear on that.
Go, Chad.
Rather than engage in a he said, she said issue, we're not serving anybody's interest here tonight. So the question on the table is the past practice that's been established back in the 2003 memo, should we continue that? Or do we need to address that and revise that?
Well, I think that's what Gloria was talking about, right? That just like the, bus stop situation tonight, I think we all have talked about it for a while, maybe had different opinions, but I think we hopefully have a resolution. I think that may have, worked out, when that, the transportation department issue was brought to us, but now I can't discuss it any further. So I don't know if we should just sit here and do this, or we can go on with the rest of the agenda, because it's just going to be back and forth and not get anything done.
I'd just like to ask the district office team, just to ask the state comptroller's office for an opinion on the practice before we go further, because I think we need advice on this. And I think that's reasonable advice, and it's a neutral party as far as I'm concerned. And if the comptroller says that this is not an advisable practice, we should revisit it. If they think that we're well within our limits, and like Ben said, this is about balance, then I think we approach it from that way. But I think we're not going to get anywhere tonight on this, and so that's my recommendation, is that we seek an opinion.
Thank you. Last comment. Go ahead, Tim.
Can I just clarify, what do you mean by practice? What practice?
What's stated in the memo, what's allowed.
Tim's point is that we might not be following the memo.
Yeah.
Well, I just want, I want to know what's on
I would say it should be that, the memo is fine. Nobody has had a problem with the memo. The problem, as I understand it, has been work being done on vehicles of supervisors who are not covered by the memo. That's the practice. That's the focus.
I want to know that at its foundation, the practice is sound. And then we can address the exceptions to the practice. If the whole practice isn't sound, then we're doing nothing but wasting time discussing the exception to the practice. If the practice is sound, then I think that's when we have to address the exception to the practice.
I agree. I don't think we're going to
there's a
resolve
foundational
anything
issue
here
here that has to be resolved.
discussing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quick comment, Kelly. Go ahead, because you haven't said anything.
I'll leave
Go
it
ahead.
alone.
You leave it alone?
Yeah, I'll leave it
It's
alone.
better. Okay. Moving on to superintendent information, Dr. Wiles.
Well, the opening of school, believe it or not, in the midst of all of this, was actually exceptionally smooth, especially from the perspective of our buildings, our classrooms, our teachers, and our students. Day two, I ran into a number of teachers who said, Marie, it felt like we never left, and that's what I would use as a litmus test for a smooth start. That is not to say we don't have our challenges in the opening of school, not to pick on transportation again, but every single year, we fine-tune the stops, the pathways of students going home and to daycares and so on. And we're well underway in making sure all those glitches are ironed out. The other big lift we had this start of school year is we transitioned to a new student data management system. We went from School Tool to eSchool Data, which has literally millions of records in it. And it was a little slow the first day of school, so we had some frustration here and there, but that's all been worked out. We're all learning the new system, and all systems are go at the moment. So we had a great opening of the school year. My second item this evening is also good news, and I'm going to say, I'll read a letter that we received from the State Education Department, but Guilderland High School has recently earned the distinction of being a recognition school by the University of the State of New York Education Department, and this award is for New York State schools that have high academic achievement, student growth, and graduation rates, and have made progress during the 2017-18 school year. As Board of Regents Chancellor Betty A. Rosa said in a press release back in June, identifying the recognition schools, these schools serve as models of the level of performance we seek for all of our schools to be able to achieve in the future. So we have a letter here from Ira Schwartz and a beautiful certificate. This is the kind of thing we need to celebrate because we are doing a great job. But Ira says, Dear Superintendent, on behalf of Commissioner Elia, now former Commissioner Elia, and the Board of Regents, I'd like to congratulate you on your district having a school that has been designated as a recognition school. This school is among those in New York State that have high academic achievement, student growth, and graduation rate, and have made progress during the 2017-18 school year. Enclosed is a certificate that celebrates your district in supporting educational excellence. We applaud your efforts and look forward to assisting your district in having all of its students achieve college and career-ready standards. And if you have any questions, please call Ira Schwartz, who sadly has also retired from the State Education Department. But we are very proud, and Mike Piscatelli's back there. Thank you, Mike, for your leadership, and the whole team. I actually feel a little like I'm giving Damien's report today because it's all good news. Then, yes, I'm enjoying this tremendously. I shared the press release that we received last week naming Guilderland High School as a National Banner Unified Champion School. We are New York State's first ever, one of four, first ever National Banner Unified Champion Schools. This distinction is made by the Special Olympics of North America, and it marks the highest level achievement with the unified sports movement. A unified champion school receiving this recognition is defined as a school that has demonstrated the highest commitment to inclusion by meeting 10 standards of excellence that were developed by a panel of leaders from Special Olympics and the education community. And as I stated in the press release that you saw on September 4th, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I cannot think of another program that so beautifully brings students together to learn, to compete, and to have fun as a genuine team. I could not be more proud of our district, our coaches, and our teams.
Yes. Marie.
Yes.
Last year, I sort of kept on Regan and asked if I could, he would let me know when there was
the games.
One of the game, and he did. And it is a wonderful experience to see. But if we could get a list of when some of those games are, it would make it easier.
You got it.
I don't want it to be huge.
Yeah. Let us know when they're coming up.
Yeah, but it was,
That would be
what an
great.
experience, yeah. It just,
Warms your heart.
yes, it did. I was going to say it's heartwarming.
We can invite Channel 13 to that.
Yes, yeah. They left just too
They
early.
left.
That's why I said it.
Thank you, Dr. Wiles. Next, board president information. First is the NYSBA 2019 voting delegate guide. I think everybody got the guide in their email, and you can read through the resolutions, and there's a Google form to fill out, and I think Barb is our rep, right? And it's going to be discussed at the October board meeting, the first meeting in October. Any questions about that?
Can I make a few comments?
Sure.
I read the language of the agenda to say we could comment tonight.
Yeah.
So I'm notorious for picking the wrong side on some of these things, but some things that I just to highlight, I think a lot of times we can come at this from a biased perspective, so to speak, because we're part of the school system, and that just comes with certain, like, yeah, of course, So one of these, for example, Resolution 9 is NISBA support proposals to authorize municipalities to install speed zone cameras in school zones. I know that some municipalities do have speed zone cameras in their school zones, but again, message. All right, I'm taking my kid to school. I'm late to work, and we got these cameras, and I get a $200 ticket. We want kids to be safe, but there's a balance here, right? We also want a community feeling in our schools. There's 2 resolutions in here on vaping. Cuomo just took executive action on that. So my father, who works for Cumberland Farms, we're gearing up for that fight. Just because some of them are broad, right? NISBA support legislative action in the regulation of vapor products. Well, that's a very big field. What are school boards really have to say about that? There's a later one that talks about increasing penalties for giving vape products to students. Maybe that's something we could offer an opinion on, but the other one. And then finally, one that's near and dear to my heart, Resolution 17 says that NISBA will support reducing the flexibility provided to charter schools for hiring teachers without a valid New York State teaching certificate. As someone who's worked in the charter school office at State Ed, there's a limit to how many teachers they can hire, and it's very hard to become a certified teacher in New York State. They keep coming up with new plans to make it easier and more accessible, and etc. But I've looked into it, and as you all know, I have a lot of enthusiasm for doing more than maybe I should, and taking on extra work. And even I was like, yeah, you know what? Maybe in 20 years, when I retire from being a lawyer. So just things to think about. A lot of these I feel like you read and you go, yeah, of course. Last year we had one about guns in school. Like, yeah, of course. But it's always good to think on the other side and think about what kind of message districts are sending beyond just what we want for ourselves. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Barb, can you remind me, so I already read through the proposed resolutions and I voted, and I know in October is when we'll discuss them. So do you get everyone's responses, right? You bring that to the meeting, and then we basically talk through the ones that there was not really fully agreement on?
Disagreement, right.
Yeah, okay.
But it's nice if you already know something like Ben just brought up that caught your eye, that you put it out now so that the rest of us that maybe didn't catch that
Oh yeah, the
nuance.
bus cameras, the vaping. There were some that were very, very specific to the district, like school district, I think. So I mean, there was an option to vote undecided, which, I couldn't really go either way. I don't know that
Opposite of voting.
situation. But yeah, thank you. Any other comments? Next is the Board of Education member vacancy update. The application period for candidates to fill the vacancy on the Board of Ed closed on September 13th. 5 individuals have submitted a letter of interest and resume. The board will hold a special meeting on Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019 at 6 p.m. in the LGI in the high school. The meeting is open to the public and will be televised and recorded. The board will appoint the successful candidate at the October 15th board meeting. The term will begin immediately and end on May 19th, 2020, the date of the budget vote and board election. I'd like to propose that we change the time to 7 p.m. I'd really like to be there, and I have a work obligation. I'm not going to make it by 6 unless people have a problem.
Actually, 7, I think, would be better for most people. They can have dinner at home and have semi-normal life.
Last hour in at work.
So if no one has a problem, can we make it
You did say that was being
televised? Yeah, it says it's going to be televised and recorded.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I wouldn't be able to make that night, but I will be.
You can watch it, yep.
What's the format of that going to be? Is it an interview, or are we going to see their information beforehand, or how's that work?
It's kind of like what you did for Meet the Candidates Night. We sit them out here, and then the board is here at,
So
it's usually a moderator asking the questions.
It's a question-answer thing?
I think we submit the questions that the moderator asks.
We have a bank of questions that we'll share with all of you. We can send them out this Friday, and we put together the list of what you might want to ask. We have used a student moderator in the past, and if we can find somebody who's willing to do that, I think that's the way you can.
Or we'll get the resumes.
The resumes, I thought I sent them on Friday. Maybe I did not.
No, I don't remember.
We'll put them in Friday's update.
Do the candidates have to respond like that they're actually coming to that October? You know what I mean? Like if
Yes.
2 people show up.
So now that it's closed, we'll reach out to them, remind
Okay.
them when it is, ask them to RSVP.
Okay.
But the press release and all the communication from the very start of this included, you need to be able to come on October 2nd for the Meet the Candidate interviews.
Okay.
Or beam in.
Or beam in.
I challenge somebody to do it from the steps of the U.S. Capitol like I did last year.
Nobody can beat that.
No,
With
that
the
was
wind
great.
blowing.
I'll try.
I'm going down next
trying.
week if you want to do a special meeting before that. I can do it.
Okay, thank you for accommodating that time, so we'll change that to 7 PM on October 2nd. Action items, first we have school business.
Thank you,
Bill?
Susan.
Yep.
First item this evening, I recommended for approval are agreements with the Christopher School in Springbrook, New York, for the provision of programs and services for our students with disabilities.
Can I have a motion? Gloria, second. Ben? Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye passes 8-0. Next.
Next is the approval of agreements to make available college and the high school courses to students for college credit during the 2019-20 school year, and that is with Schenectady Community College, Siena College in the area of physics, and Siena College in the area of computer science.
Can I have a motion? Judy? Second. Tim? Questions or comments? Barb?
In the past, we've also had Hudson Valley Community College. Is that still happening? These are just
Yeah,
additionals.
I think we approved one at the last meeting, and that might have been Hudson Valley.
Sean?
I just wanted to abstain from that as an executive of the community college.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye passes 7-0.
One abstention.
Oh, one abstention, I'm sorry. You guys are throwing me off.
Next is a resolution to approve the classroom rental and ancillary service agreement with Capital Region BOCES for the 2019-20 school year.
You skipped one.
You skipped
no.
one,
You skipped
yeah.
Harpersville.
Oh, did I?
Intermunicipal
Intermunicipal
agreement?
agreement.
C.
C?
Harpersville.
Harpersville.
C.
Okay, I don't know. Recommended for approval is an agreement with Harpersville Central School District for our district to provide reading recovery training during the 2019-20 school year.
Can I have a motion? Sean, second. Kelly? Discussion, questions?
Can I just ask, did anyone else have trouble loading that? Because I kept getting a message that the document appears to be corrupted and cannot be loaded. And that happened with just one other later on.
Oh, like the PDF?
Yeah, it just wouldn't.
It gets glitchy every now and again.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye passes 8-0.
Okay, I'll try again here. Next is recommendation for approval for the BOCES classroom rental and ancillary service agreement for the 2019-20 school year.
Can I have a motion? Ben? Second. Judy? Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye passes 8-0.
Next is a resolution to approve a memorandum of agreements, and this is in regard to the district's federal funds allocation, and it's with the following schools: Achievements, Capital District Beginnings, Oak Hill School, Spotted Zebra Learning Center, and Wildwood School.
Can I have a motion? Barb, second. Tim? Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye passes 8-0.
Next is recommendation to award the bid for environmentally friendly ice melt to Central Turf and Irrigation, the lowest responsible bidder meeting specifications.
Can I have a motion? Gloria, second Sean. Questions, comments?
We start early.
Thinking about ice already?
Don't buy too much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0.
Next is a resolution to award the bid for dual-purpose copy paper to WB Mason Incorporated, the lowest responsible bidder meeting specifications. And this is for a tractor-trailer full of 8.5x11 copy paper.
Can I have a motion? Kelly, second Sean. Any questions or comments? Judy?
Just, I appreciate that you also check to see about the recycled paper and that it isn't financially a wise move.
Correct. We always check the price, and it has been
It hasn't gotten
economic
there yet,
benefit
yeah.
so far.
Well, I appreciate that you do. I think that's good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Next is a resolution to approve the cost-sharing agreement with the town of Guilderland to jointly share costs associated with defending
Did we skip one again?
What? Letter H.
H,
Okay.
surplus property.
Surplus obsolete.
Okay.
I don't have it either.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? We got them.
Yeah.
There are a
I
lot.
didn't have Harpersville either. So.
Huh.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You both got the same virus.
We're on the same part of the internet.
Censored.
Recommended is the attached list of items that are declared as surplus or obsolete, and dispose of those items in a manner consistent with Board of Education Policy 6900, which is disposal of district property. The list has been provided to you of those items.
Can I have a motion? Sean, second Judy. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0.
Next is a resolution to approve the cost-sharing agreement with the town of Guilderland to jointly share costs associated with defending select tax certiorari proceedings.
Can I have a motion? Gloria, second. Tim? Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye, passes 8-0.
Kind of in kind with that is a resolution to approve the appointments of and agreements with Tabner, Ryan, and Kearney LLP and the Vincelet Law Firm in defense of the tax certiorari's filed for the 2019 assessment year.
Can I have a motion? Sean? Second. Kelly? Any questions or comments? Ben?
I just want to say that I was part of the team that helped interview both of these firms. These are the two firms that replied to our RFP request, and you know, the reason we're hiring both instead of just one, the idea is that we have 100 and something cases, and both are pretty busy. So this way, if one is better than the other at certain cases, or if one of them gets overwhelmed, we have a backup and we can keep moving forward. So both are good lawyers.
Thanks, Ben. That was good information.
Other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0.
Then finally this evening, we have some donations, a violin and a trombone from Janet Lemon, and 8 backpacks and school supplies from School Systems Federal Credit Union.
Can I have a motion to accept the donations? Barb, second Tim. Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0. Next, we have superintendent action. Dr. Wiles?
Thank you. My first item is a recommendation for the Board of Education to approve our building level emergency response plans for 2019-20. These confidential building level emergency response plans were reviewed in executive session.
Can I have a motion? Sean, Judy, second. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0.
My next item is the required certification of qualified lead evaluators for teachers. This is known as APPR. I will not read this long resolution, but summarize to say that it designates Our principals, Michael Piscatelli, Michael Laster, Peter Brabant, Alan Lockwood, Alicia Rizzo, Christopher Sanita, Beth Feeney, and Lisa Knowles, our PPS director, as the certified qualified lead evaluators for teachers. And you can read all the whereases if you'd like.
Can I have a motion? Barb, second. Judy. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0.
The next item is a certification of qualified lead evaluator for building principals under APPR, and that would certify that I would serve in that role as lead evaluator for our building principals.
Can I have a motion? Judy, second. Ben? Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0.
Okay, our next item is contract ratification with the Guilderland Teaching Assistant Unit. And the resolution reads, be it resolved that the Board of Education authorizes the Superintendent of Schools, Marie Wiles, to execute the proposed memorandum of agreement between the Guilderland Central School District and the Guilderland Teaching Assistant Unit of the Guilderland Teachers Association for the duration of the collective bargaining agreement, July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2022.
Can I have a motion for the contract ratification? Gloria, second. Barb? Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass 8-0.
And my last item is a list of co-curricular club approvals, including North Stars Club Request, World Language Honor Society Club, the Animal Conservation Association Club, Donate Life Club, Unaccompanied Minors Club, and Pulse Club. And that last one is not a new club, but a name change.
Can I have a motion to approve the clubs? Sean, second. Barb? Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0. Okay, thank you, Dr. Wiles.
Thank you.
Next, board committee reports. Let's start with audit. I don't know who's on audit. Hopefully you know if you're on audit.
Teresa.
Is someone here on audit?
September 30th, I believe, at 8:30, 8 o'clock.
September 30th?
September 30th, 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Going to look at the annual audit report, the draft audit report.
Thank you. Go ahead,
Now,
Mary.
that Christine on here is on the audit. Are you taking her place on that? Or- We only have, well, Tim is on it and Sean, but
Yeah, yeah, I can look into when, there's only those two, you said Sean and Tim are on there.
right.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else wants to.
But you have a new person coming on.
Yeah, I was wondering when we get to that part, if whoever
We have
takes.
4 on it. Do you only have 3 on that one
3.
because of the, yes.
Yeah. I mean, whoever we replace Christine with, maybe we could put them first into those spots. And if it doesn't work out or something, I could step in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does someone want to go to that meeting on the 30th when we won't have a replacement yet? It's reviewing the audit, so it's kind of important.
You got to make a much more compelling case than that.
I'll go if everyone's all right with that.
It's the premier meeting of the year.
What time did you say it was, Neil?
8 o'clock.
8.
Oh, 8 a.m.? I might be able to. If you can't, let me know, Ben.
Okay.
I can move some stuff around, possibly make it. Communications?
We have a scheduled meeting.
We just got a date
Just got it
today.
October
18th.
18th at
8:15.
8:15.
Thank you. Policy?
Meeting coming up next week.
On the 25th.
25th, 8:15. Business practices, did we do that?
And business practices.
Do we have a date yet? Yeah. Is it 22nd? I can't remember.
That's a Sunday.
22nd is a Sunday, yeah.
Oh, that's not that.
I have October 22nd. Is that Sunday?
October 22nd is a Tuesday.
Oh.
Yes, October 22nd. At 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock, October 22nd.
Okay. Public comment number 2. Linda, nobody signed up. Board issues, ideas, and sharing. Any comments? Anyone want to share anything? Oh, yes. And I need a motion to go into executive session to talk about the employment history of a particular individual.
Right, then there's two others too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, and also to discuss collective bargaining, no, this is not showing, it's a GA. Yeah, okay, discuss collective bargaining related to the Guilderland Employees Association and to receive legal advice from school counsel. So we have 3 items. Can I have a motion? Ben?
Only 3.
Second, Tim? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 8-0. I totally forgot about that.